Hey guys, CityScapes here. Welcome back to Verville episode 32 already. Since we gained a pretty large number of new subscribers lately, I just wanted to talk briefly about what exactly we are doing here. So City Skylines is a city simulation game which I play here in a heavily modded version. The base game looks nothing like this. It looks way more cartoonish. And I used the game here to recreate or just build a Swiss-inspired city. Zurich would be the real-life counterpart. And I'm actually not trying to recreate Zurich one-to-one. That's not possible with the game anyway, because this game doesn't support building really large-scale cities like there are in real life. So it's more of an approximation and taking a lot of ideas from Zurich or Switzerland in general. Just try to recreate the vibe at least and the general idea of a Swiss city. Maybe you're a bit confused why I put this mask at the edge of the screen. It's because I didn't want to spoil future episodes. I actually tried really hard while I was recording this episode not to spoil what's on the opposite side of the highway there. But it's just really difficult not to move the camera accidentally over there. Yeah, so anyway, I just decided to release this episode first. It's not in the perfect chronological order, but it doesn't matter too much. So after we were working on the shoreline in the last episode, which was really finicky and very high detail, and we didn't make that much progress in terms of scale of the land plot, I guess you could say. I really had the urge to see the city growing somehow, and that's why I decided to make really fast progress today. Obviously this means that we are not doing high detail work today, we are just expanding the city layout, which is very far away from a grid layout because it's a European city and the streets are way more curved and windy. I think there are just about 2 or 3 blocks that are in a somewhat symmetrical square. The rest of the blocks are in a pretty organic shape. What you can see now on the screen, some node controller work as well as intersection marking is about the most detailed thing you're gonna see today. Actually, now that I see that intersection in the time-lapse here, I think I'm gonna scale that down a lot more in the future, but I'm not sure if I showed it on the time-lapse. And I really have to say, for some reason, I can't explain it to myself, but this intersection marking tool is just so satisfying to use. It's just awesome to see just a boring, bland-looking intersection all of a sudden just turning into a very high detail and so realistic looking area everywhere you are using that tool. The only downside with the node controller and intersection marking mod is that you have to decide which intersection you want to detail a lot more, because you simply cannot go to every single crossing in your city and retrofit them, because you would sit on that forever. So I decided to just treat some major intersection with these tools, and yeah, just intersections that are at a very prominent spot where you can see them very quickly. Okay, so let's have a look at what exactly we are building here. The Europa Allee is a very highly gentrified area right next to the train station of Zurich. consists of a lot of office spaces and commercial zones, as well as apartments obviously, and it's home to large corporations like UBS, Credit Suisse and also Google. Yeah, and I try to pick up that vibe of the area and just place down a lot of very modern looking structures, pretty tall buildings for Verville. But speaking of them, I will replace these, I think they are from Dubai or something like that. I replace these tall buildings with some better fitting ones. And yeah, besides that, the topic of this whole episode is just filling in the blocks somehow. And as you can see, I use the same technique I was talking about in episode 4 of the Citadel, I think it was. Just placing down all the buildings you have to check what's in your inventory and then decide which buildings would fit where exactly. And always starting off at the strange corners from the road. This is always the most important part, to try to find buildings that fit in these difficult road layouts. And for this purpose here I use the buildings the user Jens released on the workshop. I thought this user is not active anymore, but yeah, it's pretty cool that he is sharing his amazing work here now with us. It's they fit perfectly in Verville, and there are some pretty nice models, I have to say, pretty nice textures. And speaking of nice textures and graphics, maybe you also noticed that maybe it's getting annoying, I don't know, but I already changed the color settings again, but this time I try to do something very sustainable, so we can work with that for a really long time now. I know I said that in past episodes already, but yeah, I got rid of a lot of graphic mods. I deleted or I unsubscribed from the Rendered mod because I had a lot of issues with that, and I think I'm only using Ultimate Eye Candy and Relight if I'm not mistaken. And the major change I did is I finally downloaded the Reshade software, which is not a mod for City Skylines, it's just some kind of an overlay for all your softwares on your computer. And with that I could add some really nice sharpening effects, as well as this vignette thingy you may or may not notice, which blacks out the corners of the screen a little bit. And yeah, I think from now on I will just work with Reshade. Maybe I will tune the colors a bit more, but I actually like that washed out, not too saturated look very much. Just looks pretty realistic if you ask me. But yeah, as always, let me know in the comments what do you think of the new looks here. Always good for the YouTube algorithm. And while you're at it, also let me know what do you think of these kind of, I would call it filler episodes, because there's nothing super special happening on the screen right now, but we just need to expand the city with boring city blocks. That's how a city looks like, and there's just not a way around it. And I thought, when I have to do that anyway, I can as well record that process and show it to you. I hope it's still somewhat interesting. In any case, I try to edit my episodes in such a manner that it's still somewhat interesting for you viewers, with a lot of cinematic parts in between. And yeah, I hope you enjoy that style. Here we are working on one of these very rare symmetrical looking city blocks. For that I used the Berlin city buildings, and I always try to throw in some very modern looking buildings as well. because that's how Zurich looks in real life. Always these historical old buildings together with some modern structures. And for these kind of connector roads in between the city blocks, I try to use networks that have no markings on them. So cars have to drive a bit slower because it is visually represented that pedestrians have a higher priority in that areas. And yeah, with the node controller, I deleted all the vanilla pedestrian crossings and replaced them with the Swiss yellow pedestrian crossing template I made, which is super handy. It saves you so much time when you use the template tool from the intersection marking mod. You can create these kind of prefabricated templates. I did these for the, as I said, for the yellow pedestrian crossings, as well as the stopping lines, which are these solid thick lines that go just straight across the road. And also just many more line templates for the different networks I use in this series. So with this episode and all of these pretty substantial changes to the city, I also had to rethink the road layout and just the overall traffic routing through the city. And I thought I'd show you that here quickly. So as you can see on this picture here, I marked the highway dark green on the top there and how it's gonna reach inside the city with the on and off ramps, and the dark blue ones are the main streets through the city. So yeah, here you get an idea how I managed all of these different types of roads. It's definitely not perfect, more like chaotic, but I think that could be kind of realistic, and I still have no issues with traffic at all, which is almost a bit sad because I want to see the city being really alive, and traffic jams are a part of that. So another thing I wanted to talk quickly about while we are just trying to fill all these city blocks, which is getting a bit repetitive if you ask me. But anyway, I posted a picture some time ago from a cargo train running through Verville. And there's actually a bit more to it than just subscribing to a cargo train asset and just let it run through Verville. These cargo trains are made by Ron Futa. I hope I pronounced his name correctly. And they are just looking incredible. It's really cool because they are really long cargo trains, like you can see in real life. And that's a pretty big difference to the in-game cargo trains, which are way too short. They look absolutely ridiculous if you ask me. And also they spawn way too often and you have absolutely no control over them. So I was thinking about a solution for a realistic cargo train behavior. So I created a little invisible cargo train, which is basically just an invisible cube with a very high capacity, so the game doesn't have to spawn them all the time. And these little things are crucial for the game mechanics, so cargo can still be transported all over the city. All the cargo train stations, they work without any issues. But in addition to that, I also placed train station tracks at the very outskirts of the city or almost at the edge of the map. And with that I can provide lines going all over the map. It's probably the longest train ride by now, or probably ever in this series. And it's just really cool because it's so nice to see these really long and realistic looking cargo trains just driving through the city, over the viaduct, and then through the nature parts. And this really inspired me to do a very large scale and big project. I'm not sure if I should spoil it already. Okay, yeah, I'm just gonna say it. I will probably do the Alpine Path, the Gotthard path, it's called. It's the most important alpine crossing there is in Europe, probably. And I imagine this could look really, really nice with all the helical tunnels and just the trains winding their way up the mountains. And yeah, I think I really should do that. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. I think that could be a really nice project and a really nice variety. And a really nice variety to these building projects. I don't like to be stuck in the city all the time. I really like building in the nature as well, so I think that could be a great idea. Okay, but I really digress here. So if you would like to have realistic cargo trains as well, make sure to subscribe to my invisible cargo trains. They are linked in the description below. And also to the realistic cargo trains from Ron Futa. Again, I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong there, but yeah. So in the meantime, we jumped all over this area here and just filled these blocks. And now we are finally turning to something a bit more exciting, in my opinion. I realized that I totally forgot to place a lot of parking because I still have activated the realistic parking behavior from the traffic precedent mod. So you really have to make sure to provide enough parking for all the cars in your city. So I just used a normal parking garage asset and sunk it into the ground and connected it with a narrow street that's going through this black door, which is made by Verville, if I'm not mistaken. And I placed these modern looking row houses on top of it. And yeah, I think it's a pretty neat idea to hide the entrance to this sunken parking garage like that. It looks pretty realistic in my opinion. And I just love when you can build stuff that is serving a real purpose for the game mechanics as well, and that's definitely the case here. As you can see, a lot of cars already take the road down there and are just parking in this sunken garage. Of course, I then had to cover this sunken parking with something. I decided to go for ploppable gravel here, and later on I will place some tree props on top of it, so it looks really nicely integrated. And in general, when I almost finished filling all the city blocks here, I was just kind of browsing through the whole area and fixed some things, like you saw me do here, or also beautified some areas like this church plaza here. Yeah, I think in general that wasn't a bad approach I decided to go for here, to just fill the city blocks or finish the city blocks kind of quickly. I mean, it still took like 2 or 3 days to finish that, and then go back to certain areas and improving them. So for this church here, I knew I couldn't just leave that church here on this bare looking plaza. So I decided to put some stairs on 2 sides of the church, and the other 2 sides I finished off with the retaining wall from Revo again. And yeah, just small things like that really added to this whole episode, I think. But I always try to not go overboard with the detailing, because this wouldn't be sustainable. I wouldn't be able to finish this city anytime if I detailed every single corner, like in the last episode where we built on the shoreline and the city harbor. So I also put down some ploppable pavement, and later on I will also put some cobblestone decals on top of it. It's gonna look really nice, you will see that in the cinematics. I decided not to show you every single detail of it, otherwise I would have had to split up this episode in 2 separate ones. I'm just not sure what you guys want to see. That's something you can't really read out of the YouTube statistics. I know you are really into Caesar and highway stuff, but besides that, it's quite hard to extract the right information and adjust your YouTube content to that. And besides that, I'm just building what I feel like should be done in the city. And I guess the consequence of that is that I have a very high fluctuation of view count on my videos. But that's something I can live with. It's not too bad. Okay, so finishing touches, just placing down tons and tons of greenery. I think trees are always a really good approach to hide all of these disgusting abominations of building backsides. You know, you have to hide this kind of stuff. But we are at the end of today's episode. I really hope you enjoyed. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you like my content. Follow me on Instagram for more insights to the city. I post photorealistic screenshots there. And if you want to contribute to the series, share your ideas, join my Discord server. The last thing I wanted to say is a big thank you to my patrons, Jason, James and Han. I hope I got your name correctly, I just used Google Translator. But yeah, that's been it. Really hope to see all of you in the next one.